The stars had always belonged to the Galactic Council. For centuries their fleets had patrolled the galaxy, their rule unquestioned, their power absolute. Every planet, every colony, every corner of space bowed to them or they were destroyed. The Council's ships were enormous, their weapons deadly, and their strategies flawless. They had faced rebellions before, but nothing like humanity. Humans were different. To the Council they seemed fragile, soft, and unremarkable. They had small ships barely capable of interstellar travel, and colonies that struggled to survive in harsh worlds. Their weapons were weak, their fleets small. "They are not a threat," the Council delegates said, sipping their crystal drinks in luxurious chambers. "They are a minor annoyance, nothing more." But humans had a stubbornness that no Council could understand. They had survived disasters that should have ended them. They had built homes in deserts, jungles, frozen wastelands, and even the cold void of space. They had fought each other, suffered, learned, and grown stronger every time. What the Council saw as weakness, humans turned into strength. The first incident that drew the Council's ire was a misunderstanding on the edge of human space. A human colony had sent mining ships into a rich asteroid field. The Council accused them of trespassing, of stealing resources that belonged to the galaxy. The Council demanded tribute. Millions of tons of rare metals, the surrender of entire colonies, obedience to their laws. Humans refused. The ambassador from Earth, a calm man named Elias Kane, stood before the Council and said only, "We will not bow." The chamber fell silent. Delegates whispered to each other in alien tongues, their voices rising in anger and disbelief. Some laughed at the human defiance, believing that hunger, cold, or fear would eventually make them obey. Others looked uneasy. "These humans, they are dangerous," one said quietly. "They have no reason to fear us, yet they defy everything we are." Outside the chamber, human ships moved quietly in orbit around their colonies. Engineers and pilots worked tirelessly, maintaining vessels that were small but clever. They were not built to fight like the massive Council warships. They were built to survive, to strike when the moment was right, and to exploit weaknesses the Council could not even imagine. Back on Earth, children played in cities that reached the sky. Farmers tended to fields under two suns on other colonies. Scientists worked in labs that pushed the boundaries of what humans could do. None of them could imagine the storm coming, the way their species would soon shake the galaxy. But every human, knowingly or unknowingly, had helped prepare for the day when humanity would no longer be ignored. Elias Kane walked the corridors of the Council chambers, listening to the heated debates around him. Delegates argued over the fate of humanity, threatening war and destruction, confident that fear would bring obedience. Yet Kane's face was calm. He remembered the faces of the human colonists, children, mothers, fathers, soldiers, engineers, who had struggled to survive on barren worlds. He thought of their courage, their endless determination. He knew humanity would never surrender. For the first time, some Council members began to feel unease. The humans had no grand fleet, no superweapons, no centuries of conquest behind them. Yet their defiance carried a weight that the Council could not calculate. Their refusal to bow was not foolish, it was courage. And courage, the Council had long forgotten, could be stronger than fleets or weapons. As night fell over the distant planets under human control, the Council's spies reported back on every human colony. Every report carried the same troubling note. Humans were not afraid. Even after skirmishes, attacks, and losses, humans continued to build, to train, to explore. Their leaders promised hope where there should have been despair. Their families endured hunger and hardship without complaint. Their soldiers fought not for glory or conquest, but for survival and the protection of their people. In the Council's chambers, discussions turned to plans of punishment. Ships would be sent, worlds would be burned, humans would be crushed. Yet a shadow of doubt lingered in some hearts. What if the humans did not break? What if the Council had underestimated a species that had survived against impossible odds? Far across the galaxy, in the quiet of human space, something stirred. Ships were launched quietly. Engineers worked through the night and pilots trained relentlessly. Humans had no illusions about the coming storm. They knew the Council would strike, that war was inevitable, and yet humans did not tremble. They did not beg. They prepared silently, patiently, for the moment when the galaxy would learn what humanity truly was. And somewhere deep in space, watching the Council's arrogance, the human ambassador smiled faintly. "Let them come," he whispered. "Let them see what it means to challenge humanity." The stars above seemed to shiver in anticipation. The galaxy, so long ruled by fear, was about to meet something it had never understood. Humanity was small, but in its defiance burned a fire that no council could extinguish. The Galactic Council believed it had time. They thought humans would weaken, that hunger, fear, or intimidation would force them to submit, but humans were patient. They had survived plagues, wars, and natural disasters on worlds that should have killed them. They were not afraid. They did not beg. They prepared. In the silent depths of space, hidden in asteroid belts and distant nebulae, human engineers worked tirelessly. They did not build giant warships like the Council, nor did they attempt to match their enemy in size. Humans built differently. Every ship was a combination of speed, precision, and cunning. Their weapons were not the largest, but they were designed to strike at the enemy's weakest points, to surprise, to outsmart. Captain Mara Solis walked the corridors of the ship Defiance, her boots echoing against the steel floor. She had grown up on a colony world under constant threat, learning to survive in conditions harsher than the Council could imagine. Her eyes, dark and steady, reflected the determination of every human alive. Around her, the crew worked quietly, checking systems, reviewing maps, and preparing for missions that no one outside humanity could understand. "You think they'll come for us?" asked Lieutenant Rin, a young pilot whose homeworld had been attacked by Council scouts. "They will," Mara said calmly. "But we are ready. We've always been ready. They don't understand humans. They never will." Humanity's fleet was small compared to the Council's massive armadas, but it was clever. Ships darted like shadows through asteroid fields, striking from angles the Council never anticipated. Small squadrons could disable entire outposts, then vanish before reinforcements arrived. Humanity did not fight for conquest. They fought for survival, for honor, and for every colonist who had endured Council oppression. On the planet Arcadia Prime, miners worked quietly as explosions rocked distant asteroids. Human engineers had rigged Council supply stations to collapse if they approached too closely. The miners, ordinary people with little military training, now acted as soldiers. They carried messages, repaired small ships, and helped the fleet navigate the dangerous terrain of space. Every human in some way was part of the rebellion. Across the galaxy, Council delegates dismissed early reports of attacks. "Trivial skirmishes," they said. "Humans are small. Their victories are meaningless," but the reports kept coming. Small stations destroyed, supply convoys vanished, patrols ambushed. The humans were not just fighting, they were sending a message. Humanity would not bow, and every strike was a warning. In the communications room of the flagship Resolute, Commander Elias Kane observed the galaxy through countless screens. He saw the Council scramble, their fear thinly hidden beneath arrogance. He also saw the resolve of his own people, the miners, engineers, scientists, and pilots who had become warriors. Every strike, every success strengthened their unity. Humanity was more than ships or weapons. Humanity was spirit. The first major human strike came near the outpost of Cerulean Station. The Council had stationed hundreds of ships there, confident that any human attack would fail. They had underestimated humans' patience and ingenuity. Human ships slipped through patrols under the cover of cosmic storms, using the environment as both shield and weapon. With precision strikes, they disabled communication arrays, sabotaged weapon systems, and crippled defenses before the Council even realized what was happening. Explosions lit the void, painting the blackness of space with fire and metal. Mara piloted her ship through the chaos, her hands steady on the controls. She remembered her sister lost in a previous skirmish. She remembered her homeworld burned by Council scouts. Every strike she made was more than a tactical maneuver. It was justice, memory, and a promise. When the dust settled, human forces had achieved the impossible. Cerulean Station was crippled and council forces were in disarray. The human fleet sent a simple, almost mocking message. You cannot control us. You will not break us. Humanity survives. Across the galaxy, the message traveled faster than any council dispatch. Alien spies began reporting with urgency, noting the humans' unusual strategies and unmatched courage. They are not predictable, said one council officer. They are relentless. The council had ruled for centuries by calculating every move, every reaction. Humanity defied every prediction. Every plan the council made was met with a human counter that no one could foresee. On Earth, people watched the news of human victories with disbelief and pride. Children cheered, families embraced, and scientists celebrated discoveries that had helped the fleet succeed. Humanity was fighting not just to survive, but to be recognized, to be respected, to show the galaxy that their species was not fragile, not weak, and not to be ignored. As Mara looked at the stars, she felt a fire ignite inside her. Humanity's struggle had only begun, but the first sparks of rebellion were already roaring into flames. The council believed humans were small. They believed humans were weak. They had no idea what humanity could do when pushed to the edge. And soon, the galaxy would see. The council had grown confident again. They believed humanity's attacks were isolated, small strikes that could be contained. They saw humans as clever but ultimately weak, a species that would falter under real pressure. They were wrong. In the darkness of space, human ships moved like shadows. Small fleets, each carefully chosen and trained, slipped past council patrols and defenses. Every ship carried not only weapons but hope, courage, and the memories of every human who had suffered under the council's hand. Captain Mara Solis led the fleet known as the First Wave. She was calm, her mind focused, but her heart burned with determination. This attack was more than a strike, it was a statement. Humanity would no longer hide. Humanity would no longer submit. Humanity would fight for every colony, every life, every human soul. Steady, everyone, Mara said over the comms. We know what we're doing. We know their weakness. Trust yourselves. Trust each other, and remember why we fight. Her crew nodded, their eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. Engineers checked weapons, pilots reviewed flight paths, and soldiers prepared boarding equipment. Every person on the Defiance understood the stakes. They were not just fighting for victory, they were fighting for the dignity of their species. The target was Arendor Prime, a council outpost famed for its size and defenses. Thousands of council soldiers patrolled its surface in orbit. Its turrets could destroy entire human fleets if approached directly. But humans did not fight like the council expected. They did not charge blindly. They struck with precision, patience, and cunning. As the human fleet approached, sensors picked up council ships on alert. Mara's squadron split into smaller groups, each moving along a carefully plotted trajectory. They used the asteroid belt surrounding the planet as cover, slipping past detection until they were close enough to strike. Suddenly, alarms blared across Arendor Prime. The council officers were caught off guard. Human ships appeared from angles no one had considered, their small frames making them nearly invisible against the stars. Impossible, shouted one officer. How did they get through? Mara's squadron attacked swiftly. Torpedoes disabled key weapon systems. Drones sabotaged communications and fighters harassed patrols. Human ships darted in and out of the chaos, striking fast and disappearing before reinforcements could respond. The council outpost, so confident in its defenses, was thrown into panic. In orbit above the planet, Mara watched as council ships struggled to regain control. Explosions lit the void, metal twisting and burning as the humans pressed forward. She remembered her homeworld, burned by council scouts years ago. She remembered her sister lost to their cruelty. Every strike was more than strategy. It was memory, it was justice, It was humanity refusing to kneel. Down on the surface, Council soldiers tried to organize a counterattack, but humans had anticipated every move. Their boarding parties breached key facilities, shutting down energy cores and sabotaging the station's control systems. The Council had trained for centuries, but they had never faced an enemy that fought with such intelligence, courage, and unity. After hours of intense combat, the human fleet had achieved the impossible. Arendor Prime was crippled. The Council's forces were scattered and confused. The humans did not linger for glory. They pulled back, leaving behind messages for the Council. We will not bow. We will not beg. Humanity survives. Across the galaxy, news of the attack spread like wildfire. Colonies that had feared the Council now whispered hope. Humans had shown not only courage but brilliance. The Council's arrogance had been shattered. They had assumed humans could be controlled with fear, but fear had only made them stronger. Back on the Defiance, Mara allowed herself a brief moment to breathe. She looked at her crew, tired but determined, and felt a swell of pride. We've sent them a message they will never forget, she said softly. We are not small. We are not weak. We are humanity. Council leaders watching the reports in their chambers were in shock. The delegates had never faced a foe like this. Ships that were small, weak, and seemingly insignificant had shattered one of their greatest outposts. The arrogance of centuries had blinded them, and now they were forced to confront a terrifying truth. Humans were not to be underestimated. Some whispered among themselves, fear in their voices. They are more than clever, one said. They are unstoppable. But the Council had yet to understand the full measure of humanity. They had seen only the first wave. Mara stared out at the stars, feeling both exhaustion and exhilaration. Humanity had made its first true stand. The galaxy had heard the roar of a species that refused to be broken. And this was only the beginning. The stars above seemed to tremble as if acknowledging the rise of a force the galaxy had long ignored. Humanity had struck back, and the Council had no idea what was coming next. The Galactic Council had always ruled through fear. Their fleets, their laws, their punishments, everything was designed to make the galaxy obey. Yet for the first time in centuries, fear had turned against them. Humanity was not afraid. Humanity was fighting back. And with each strike, the Council's control began to crumble. Council chambers were filled with shouting and panic. Delegates argued over strategies, blaming each other for underestimating the humans. Some called for overwhelming force, sending entire fleets to crush humanity's worlds. Others, more cautious, whispered that perhaps they had misjudged the species. But even the wisest voices could not calm the growing hysteria. They are too clever, one delegate said. His voice shook. They strike where we are weakest. They vanish before we can respond. This is not a species we can crush easily. They are small, another argued, clutching his datapad. Our fleets outnumber theirs 1,000 to 1. They cannot possibly survive against us. Outside the chambers, the galaxy was changing. Planets that had once trembled under Council authority began sending secret messages to human colonies, offering aid. Small factions joined human fleets, providing supplies, intelligence, and reinforcements. The humans were no longer isolated. Their courage inspired hope in systems that had long been crushed by fear. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Mara Solis studied the reports coming from distant colonies. Messages of support, of joined fleets, and of people ready to fight alongside humanity filled her screens. They are waking up, she said softly. They see that the Council can be challenged, that they can survive. Her first officer, Lieutenant Rin, nodded. We are not just fighting for our colonies anymore. We are fighting for every world under their rule. They are showing the galaxy what it means to resist. Human engineers worked day and night, repairing ships damaged in the first wave of attacks, upgrading weapons, and preparing for the next strike. Every human, from the youngest pilot to the oldest technician, felt the weight of history on their shoulders. They were not just defending themselves, they were setting an example. proving that humanity would not bow to tyranny. Meanwhile, the Council attempted to regroup. Fleets were repositioned, defensive stations reinforced, and war plans rewritten. But every move the Council made seemed to fall into human hands. Humanity's strategy was not just about force, it was about intelligence, adaptability, and the unbreakable will to survive. In one Council command room, an officer slammed his fist on the table. "They have beaten our patrols, destroyed our supply lines, and crippled one of our outposts. How can this be possible?" "They are humans," another replied grimly. "They are unpredictable. They are relentless. And they are united, unlike anything we have faced before." Back on the Defiance, Mara looked out at the stars, the void alive with the movements of her fleet. She thought of her family, of the countless humans who had suffered under the Council's oppression. She thought of the children born on frontier worlds, the workers who toiled under harsh conditions, and the soldiers who had given their lives. Each human life carried a story, a memory, and a reason to fight. Her mind drifted to a phrase she often told her crew. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting despite it. Humans had faced countless threats and disasters, yet they had never given in. That courage now radiated across the galaxy like a beacon. Reports came in from the edge of human-controlled space. Colonies once terrified of the Council were rising up, sabotaging patrols and resisting oppression. Every act of defiance was a spark, and the flames of rebellion were spreading. Humanity's actions were no longer just strikes. They were symbols of hope, proof that the Council's empire was not invincible. In the Council chambers, debates grew louder, more desperate. Some factions argued for diplomacy, fearing that continued attacks could lead to a full-scale rebellion across the galaxy. Others demanded total annihilation, willing to risk planetary destruction to assert control. The room was divided and chaos reigned. Mara watched all of this from afar, her eyes steady. The Council had underestimated the human spirit, their intelligence, and their unity. Humanity was not a species that could be threatened into submission. They had already proven that survival was only the beginning. The stars seemed to hum with anticipation. Across countless systems, humans prepared for the next wave, ready to show the galaxy that defiance, courage, and heart could change the course of history. And in the Council's heart, fear had taken root. For the first time, they realized that humanity was not just another species to control. Humanity was a force that could reshape the stars themselves. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for what would come next. And humanity, unwavering, stood ready to show them all. The human fleet had grown stronger, but so had the stakes. Every mission carried risk. Every battle demanded courage. And in the midst of it, individual stories of sacrifice and bravery began to shine brighter than any fleet or weapon. Humanity's true strength was not just in ships or strategy. It was in the hearts of those who refused to give up. Captain Mara Solis prepared for the next assault. The target was Veyron Station, a Council stronghold known for its impenetrable defenses. Mara knew the cost would be high. Lives would be lost. But she also knew that hesitation could cost even more. Humanity could not afford to falter now. Among the pilots was Lieutenant Rin, a young man whose homeworld had been destroyed by Council forces. He had lost his family, his friends, and almost all hope. Yet in this battle he found purpose. He was no longer fighting for revenge alone. He was fighting for every human who had suffered, for every colony under threat, for the future of his species. On the bridge of the Defiance, Mara addressed her crew. "This mission is dangerous. Many of us will face harm. But remember why we fight. We fight for life, for hope, for every person who believes in humanity. Trust yourselves. Trust each other. And fight with heart." The fleet moved through the void, silent and precise. Council patrols scanned the space, but humans were clever, using nebulae, debris, and even the light of distant stars to mask their movements. Each ship moved like a shadow, avoiding unnecessary detection, conserving strength for the decisive moment. When they reached Veyron Station, the battle erupted with sudden ferocity. Explosions lit the darkness as human ships darted between turrets, striking at weak points the Council had overlooked. Mara piloted her ship with skill and precision, coordinating attacks, dodging fire, and protecting her crew. In the midst of the chaos, stories of personal heroism unfolded. Rin and his squadron took on a Council frigate that threatened to flank the fleet. One by one, his teammates were struck down, yet he pressed forward, guiding the damaged ships to safety and drawing enemy fire away from the main fleet. His courage inspired others, showing that even in the face of despair, humanity could shine. Meanwhile, engineers aboard the human ships worked frantically. Systems failed, weapons overheated, and shields weakened, yet they persevered, repairing, recalibrating, and finding creative solutions under impossible pressure. They were ordinary people performing extraordinary feats because they believed in something greater than themselves. During the battle, Mara received a distress call from a smaller transport ship carrying colonists. The Council had targeted it for destruction. Without hesitation, Mara diverted part of her squadron, engaging multiple enemy fighters at once. Her ship shook under fire and alarms blared, but she held her course. The colonists would survive, and humanity would not leave its people behind. As the fighting raged, Mara saw her own crew risk everything. Soldiers boarded enemy ships to sabotage weapons. Engineers crawled through damaged hulls to prevent catastrophic explosions, and pilots pushed beyond their limits to shield allies. Each act of bravery was a testament to the human spirit, fragile yet unbreakable. Hours later, the battle ended. Veyron Station was crippled, its fleet scattered, and the Council forced to retreat. Human casualties were high, but the victory was undeniable. Humanity had proven that even the smallest and weakest among them could change the course of a battle through courage, unity, and heart. On the bridge of the Defiance, Mara allowed herself a rare moment to breathe. She looked at her crew, exhausted but alive, and felt a deep swell of pride. Every life lost, every injury suffered had contributed to a greater purpose. Humanity was not only fighting to survive, it was fighting to prove its worth to the galaxy and to itself. Lieutenant Rin, bloodied but smiling, approached Mara. "We did it," he said softly. "We actually did it." Mara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Yes," she replied, "and we will do it again. Because this is who we are. Humanity does not bow. Humanity does not flee. Humanity stands, even when the odds are impossible." Across the galaxy, news of the victory spread. Colonies that had long lived in fear began to rise, offering support to the human fleet, sending supplies, intelligence, and volunteers. The Council's authority was weakening. Fear had been replaced by hope. Humanity was no longer just surviving. It was inspiring a galaxy-wide movement. That night, Mara gazed out at the stars. She thought of every person who had given their life for this moment, every human who had fought, every world that had dared to resist. Humanity's heart was strong, unyielding, and full of courage. And as the stars shimmered above, Mara knew this was only the beginning. The Council had underestimated them, and the galaxy would soon learn that humanity's true power was not in ships, weapons, or numbers. It was in the spirit that refused to break, the heart that refused to surrender, and the courage that burned brighter than any star. The galaxy was no longer silent. Humanity's defiance had ignited hope in the hearts of countless systems that had long cowered under the Council's shadow. Everywhere, whispers of rebellion spread. Planets that had obeyed without question began to question. Colonies that had feared retaliation began to send support to the human fleet. Humanity's courage was contagious. Captain Mara Solis stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching reports pour in from distant systems. Supply convoys carrying weapons and food, reconnaissance ships offering intelligence. Even small fleets from previously neutral colonies were joining the cause. "The tide is turning," she said quietly, her eyes scanning the stars. "And we are not alone anymore." Lieutenant Rin, still recovering from the wounds of the last battle, nodded. They see what we can do. They see that the Council is not invincible. They are finally waking up. The Council, however, was in panic. Their fleets, once the envy of the galaxy, were overextended and disorganized. Commands that had once been executed without question were now met with hesitation and confusion. Delegates shouted at each other, blaming mistakes, accusing each other of cowardice. The humans were not only fighting, they were destabilizing the Council from within. They are everywhere, one Council officer shouted, shaking a fist at a holomap. We cannot predict them. They strike where we are weak, then vanish before we can respond. They are not just fighting, a more cautious delegate said. They are inspiring the galaxy. Entire systems are joining them. Their spirit spreads faster than any fleet we can deploy. On a small moon in the outer rim, human engineers worked alongside volunteers from neighboring colonies, repairing damaged ships and preparing new ones for the next engagement. The scene was chaotic yet full of determination. Humanity's unity was their greatest weapon. Every life, every skill, every ounce of courage contributed to the growing force that would challenge the Council's centuries of domination. During a briefing, Mara outlined the next mission. A Council fleet had gathered near the star system of Valoria, preparing to crush rising rebellions. The humans would strike first. They would not attack blindly. They would target supply lines, disable communications, and inspire allies to rise up. Precision, speed, and courage would be their tools. As the human fleet moved into position, scouts reported that smaller factions of the Council were already faltering. Planets under their control refused to fight. Supplies were sabotaged. Spies within the Council's own ranks were feeding information to humanity. Every small victory strengthened the growing belief that the Council's reign could be broken. Mara felt a swell of pride in her crew. They had endured loss, fear, and unimaginable challenges, yet they moved forward united and resolute. Even in the darkest moments, humanity had never wavered. They fought not for conquest, but for survival, for freedom, and for the chance to prove that no force in the galaxy could crush their spirit. The battle at Valoria began with lightning speed. Human ships, smaller but far more agile than the Council's massive vessels, darted between defenses, striking hard and vanishing into the void. Explosions erupted across the Council fleet, throwing their formations into chaos. Mara coordinated the attack from the Defiance, guiding squadrons with skill born of experience and unshakable determination. Amid the chaos, stories of courage shone brightly. Pilots risked everything to save damaged ships. Soldiers boarded enemy vessels despite overwhelming odds. Engineers worked under fire, repairing critical systems even as alarms blared and hulls shook. Every action was proof that humanity's strength came not from technology alone, but from heart, unity, and unwavering resolve. By the time the Council forces retreated, the humans had struck decisive blows. Entire fleets had been crippled, key outposts neutralized, and colonies liberated. Word of victory spread quickly, inspiring more planets to rise in rebellion. Humanity had not only survived, they had shifted the balance of power in the galaxy. Mara looked at the stars, feeling both exhaustion and exhilaration. Every loss, every victory, every moment of fear and courage had led to this point. The galaxy was waking up to the truth. Humans were not weak. They were not insignificant. They were a force that could change the course of history. In the Council chambers, delegates huddled together, whispering in fear. Some had begun to realize the truth that others could not yet accept. Humanity was not just a nuisance or a threat. They were unstoppable. Their courage, unity, and ingenuity had turned the tide, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Mara's voice broke the silence on the bridge. We fight because we must. We fight because we can. And we fight because we will not allow anyone to break us. The galaxy will see what humanity truly is. The stars shimmered as if in answer, and the human fleet moved forward, stronger, united, and unstoppable. The Council's empire was trembling, and the dawn of a new era was rising. Humanity was not just surviving, it was conquering fear, inspiring hope and shaping the galaxy in its image. The tide had turned, and humanity would never turn back. The final battle was approaching. The Council's capital, a massive station orbiting the heart of their empire, loomed like a dark monolith. It was defended by fleets, turrets, and every weapon the Council could muster. For centuries, no enemy had dared challenge it directly. But humanity was not just any enemy. Humanity was courage, ingenuity, and heart combined into one unstoppable force. Captain Mara Solis stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the stars, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. Her crew was exhausted but determined. Each pilot, soldier, and engineer had faced fear, loss, and death, yet they had returned stronger. Every human who had fallen was remembered, every act of bravery honored. Humanity had come too far to fail now. Lieutenant Rin, now scarred from countless battles, tightened his harness. "This is it, Captain," he said. "The Council doesn't even know what's coming." Mara nodded. "No, they don't, and when we're done, the galaxy will know. Humanity is unstoppable." The human fleet moved forward in perfect coordination, a dance of shadows and light. Small, agile ships darted through space, targeting supply lines, defenses, and communication arrays. Engineers remotely sabotaged weapons and shields, turning the Council's own technology against them. Every move was precise, calculated, and deadly. When they reached the inner defenses of the capital, the battle erupted. Explosions lit the void, and the Council's fleets fired relentlessly. But human ships were fast, clever, and fearless. Mara piloted her ship through the chaos, coordinating her fleet with calm determination. Every strike was not just a blow, it was a statement. Humanity would not bow. Humanity would not flee. Humanity would survive. Amid the battle, moments of extraordinary courage shone brightly. Pilots risked everything to shield transports carrying civilians. Soldiers boarded massive Council ships, disabling weapons while facing impossible odds. Engineers crawled through damaged hulls to prevent catastrophic explosions, their hands bleeding but steady. Each act of bravery proved the truth that had fueled humanity from the beginning. Spirit was stronger than steel, courage stronger than fear. Then came the moment that would define the battle. Mara led a squadron directly to the heart of the Council capital. Its defenses were overwhelming, but human ingenuity had found a weakness, a blind spot in the station's core systems. Torpedoes were launched with precision, striking the station's energy nexus. The explosion was massive, shaking the void and sending shockwaves through the Council's fleet. From orbit, the human fleet watched as the capital burned, its shields shattered and its weapons silenced. The Council, shaken and leaderless, began to retreat. Their empire, once untouchable, had been humbled by a species they had underestimated for centuries. Mara allowed herself a moment to breathe. She thought of every human who had given their life for this victory, every colony that had resisted oppression, every act of courage that had led to this moment. Humanity had fought not just for survival, but to prove to the galaxy, and to themselves, that they were more than the Council had ever imagined. A message was sent from the human flagship, simple and powerful: we fight for freedom, for life, and for hope. The galaxy will no longer kneel to tyranny. Humanity stands, and it will never bow again. Across the stars, humans celebrated quietly, honoring the fallen while embracing the living. Colonies once oppressed were free. Systems once fearful were bold. Humanity had changed the galaxy not through fear or domination, but through courage, unity, and relentless determination. In the Council chambers, delegates could only watch in disbelief. The empire they had built for centuries had crumbled not through treachery, not through vast armies, but through the heart and courage of a single species. Some whispered that humanity was not just a threat, they were a force the galaxy would never forget. Mara looked at the stars, scarred by war yet shining brighter than ever. She thought of her crew, her people, and the countless humans who had refused to bow. Humanity had survived against impossible odds, and in doing so had reshaped the galaxy forever. Lieutenant Rin came to her side, voice quiet but full of awe. "We did it, Captain. We actually did it." Mara smiled, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "Yes, Rin, and this is just the beginning. The galaxy has learned our name, our strength, and our spirit. They will remember that humans do not bow, humans do not break, humans endure. And humanity will always stand tall." The stars shimmered above as if in acknowledgement. Humanity had not only survived, they had triumphed. The council had fallen, hope had risen, and a new era of courage, unity, and freedom had begun. For the first time, the galaxy understood the truth. Humanity may be young, but it is unstoppable, and in the endless expanse of space, humanity stood tall.